All right, you like this? It's the little Zen den. You can't really see it, but we do have gravel around here. I just need to clean it up. Probably put one more layer. We've got some rakes to zen around the little areas. The one thing that I've got to do here, though, a tornado and some insane hail moved through, late spring, destroyed everything. Um, it had a bamboo backing. It was kind of cheap anyway, so I just tore it down, threw it in the brush pile. I've got new wood to replace it with. I haven't got to it yet. 95 degrees and all the other stuff to do around here definitely makes it a little bit more. Oh, you got to build your priorities, especially when I'm running back to town and then slaving away behind the corporate desk. Again, blessing of that though, it helps pay for everything. So again, there's kind of a yin and yang. You like that with everything. But one thing that I kind of wanted to touch on that I think is the foundation for any of the getting out of the matrix stuff, and that is the spiritual side. Uh, I actually think religion's important. Some people say, "Oh, give me spiritual, not religious." Fine, that's a different conversation. I'm not going to turn the camera around, but I've got one of those hard metal signs that I use it to actually. I've got biblical quotes all around this thing on a biblical perspective and for meditation, for being still. And instead of giving like a lecture on that, I kind of want to just start with just a very quick background of where I'm coming from. And the metal sign, though, what I was going to say is it just says, "Be still and know that I am God." Psalms 46:10. Rarely are we ever still, especially in the West and largely, especially Christians. From my limited travels in the East, of course, and just friends, uh, you do see both sides of the coin. Like Japan was very 100 miles an hour, but at the same time, they did have that. Even the young people, they would meet, they would bow. They weren't religious in the traditional sense, but they were very spiritual. Speaking of, I got to be careful. I just got that stacked up. You like that? Whoa, whoa! Stacking stones. Okay, not really. These are already attached permanently. But my own background, I think, is what everybody has to do. No, I'm kidding. Each to your own. I ended up going through, which was a huge blessing for me. I went through, long story short, I don't want to make this video that long. I started working at a microbiology lab at the University of Arkansas in 1996 through 1999, I think. And I always said, yeah, I'm a Christian, even though I couldn't tell you anything about it. Didn't go to church or anything growing up, except for, I think on Christmas and Easter we would go. And a lab tech there, an atheist, was finally, it's like, "James, do you honestly believe there's a God?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I do." And then she hit me with all these questions. And I'm like, ooh, don't know, don't know, don't know. What was the other one? Yeah, I don't know. Not that it's necessary, but I did say, you know what? I really think I need to know if I'm going to be a Christian, I need to know at least what it means. So I really prayerfully did a lot of study. And what's interesting is I had finished my undergraduate with like a really low GPA, like I think it was less than 2.7. I didn't really care then. I was just partying and, you know, not much direction. Well, then I said, you know what? I'm kind of into this, learning more about history, philosophy. My GPA was too low to get into grad school, so I just started over. And I said, look, I'll transfer to this school. Uh, you'll only take 60 hours. I'll just do another undergraduate. And I did it in philosophy of religion. And I ended up with like a 3.9. So obviously that was good enough to get into graduate school, where I did a master's in ancient and classical history. Again, and I worked at a corporate office. So it's not like I used it in that sense, but I did use it in another sense. And that was hosting all these different think tanks, these groups that was supporting, for example, things like intelligent design. And I would sit there and tell all the different, I paid for it all out of pocket. So I would tell the atheist groups and the science groups, show up, blow these guys out of the water, destroy them if they're wrong. Um, and anyway, I don't want to digress too much. Great experience. I traveled around. I ended up, the more I learned, I would say, hey, I need to test this. I would go to a little atheist group and say, you guys ask 3 questions to me for every 1 question I can ask you. Destroy me. I'm a Christian. God exists. And then, they at first would always be like, oh, you idiot. Well, guess what? By the time I came out of the lion's den, I would sometimes, a little bit bruised and battered, but I learned. And it got to the point where every time I spoke to an atheist group, oh my goodness, my confidence went up. Because I don't mean that like throwing stones or getting into a debate, but their answers were very inadequate. So anyway, long story short, I ended up publishing a master's thesis here, and I need you guys to buy it. No, I'm kidding. It's obviously pretty old at this point, 2013, I think. The Philosophy of History, Naturalism, and Religion. Naturalism versus Biblical Theism. Well, then this one is a little more academic. So then they asked me to do an abbreviated version, the publisher, Mere Christian Apologetics. Very thinner, simple, much more on the Christian element. Well, then I kind of got into other areas, the philosophy of art. And, but I tied it all back to the spiritual and everything that, I kind of tried this through. All it did was strengthen my faith to where I'm like, oh yes, Christianity is true. The reason I say all this isn't like, oh, look, pat me on the back. No, it's because I think that sometimes, if you go to, hey, I'm going Zen, man, you don't have a good foundation, you'll see a lot of these people. They'll be pluralist, relativist, all truth is equally true, or all truth is equally false. And then you're like, what about what you just said? Oh wait, no, that's objectively true. Well then, not all truths are relative. Or pluralism. A friend of mine from India, Dr. Subho Pandit, he makes a classic example of that. He's from India. He's got his doctorate, and he spent a 20-year journey. First 10 years, is there a God? And then he kind of shares his journey why there has to be a God. Then the next 10 years, he's like, well, what God is it? And he breaks down the major religions, and he's like, look, Christianity is the only one that stands true. And he does these talks since he's from India, throughout Asia, Europe, a very friendly demeanor. But on pluralism, he makes a good point. Okay, Islam, it says Jesus is not the Son of God. He did not die on the cross. Okay, well, Christianity builds its truth 100% on that. Those two can't be both true. Buddhism in the Theravada sense is what Siddhartha Buddha would have followed, was more atheistic. Okay, Hinduism, there's pantheism, there's millions and millions of gods. Judaism, there's one God. These all can't be true. So pluralism sounds kind of nice and polite. Oh, it's all the same path to the same destination. But it sounds kind of silly if you really think about it. Okay, my point being there is not like I'm going to get you in a headlock and you need to believe what I believe. No. What I'm saying here is I do think having a good foundation otherwise is very important. So I think right now I've got the foundation. Oh my gosh, I probably spent too much time in apologetics because you start using the left brain too much. And my point being there is sometimes coming out here and saying, you know what? Like these Bible verses say, I need to just clear my head, not go into a lecture on, junk DNA. I need to go and just meditate out here and listen to nature, listen to God, the Spirit. And that's where I think the East, Zen Buddhist, or drop the Buddhism, Zen Christian, has something to offer. And the reason about the foundation that I think is important is if you don't have that foundation kind of developed, and you'll see that sometimes some person walks through and I'm like, hey, you're in yellow robes? Yeah, I had a conversation with a guy, so now I'm going to be a Hindu. Oh, you're Hindu now? I thought you were a Buddhist. Oh, I was yesterday, but this guy talked to me and now I'm a Hindu. Okay. Then all of a sudden you see them again. Oh, they're atheists. Well, I thought you were a Hindu. no, I talked to this other guy and they had some really good points. That person just doesn't have a foundation. Like 1 minute they're like, meditating and doing yoga and thinking they're going to float in the air. And then the next minute they've abandoned the whole thing. Well, I have the foundation. And that's why I think it's very important, regardless. I mean, I'll tell my friends that are Buddhist, I was like, well, you should at least understand a little about Buddhism. So that's all I'm saying here. So from my spiritual standpoint, I really think getting the foundation and knowing what you believe is true, and that's why I am unapologetically, infinity percent, I am a Christian. Uh, Christ died on the cross for us all. And with that, there's going to be, in these videos, if I talk anything about it, it's going to be much more on the mere Christianity, kind of like my Mere Christian Apologetics book. C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity, the basic tenets. I don't, I do, but I don't really like to get into well, what about Calvinism? What's your problems with Reformed theology? Left brain, too much. We'll let God settle that, because at the end of the day, everyone will agree. God, infinite. Human, finite. We will never completely understand. That's why Scripture says God's ways are not our ways. So with that being said, sorry, that was a little bit long. I'll try to wrap this up. That's where I'm starting from. Now, on the other piece of it, you have some awesome stuff here. Alan Watts, Behold the Spirit. What I like about Alan Watts, I mean, just YouTube him, Google him, good stuff. This book, though, was before he got soured by religion. He was a Christian, I think, Episcopal priest, and he kind of went to be more of a, he died like 1972, 73. Again, in his 50s. So again, a warning to don't count all of these years. Like, well, when I'm 90, I'm going to be doing all this stuff. But anyway, in this book, it was basically like he's kind of saying a lot of the same things I am. But keep in mind, this is like 1950s. So he would have been speaking to a much, much harsher conservative, I don't really like that word, but type audience, where they would probably call me, a goofy wanderer, even though I'm like, no, I've got a foundation in this stuff. But the stuff he brought up, I think, is part and parcel. And I think, not to go into a bunch of terms, orthodoxy, it's right belief. Is what you believe right with, say, Scripture? Well, I think that from the books I showed, yes, I've got orthodoxy down pretty good. Orthopraxy, right practice. Are you really practicing what you preach? Are you really, giving money to the homeless? Are you worshiping? Are you, not as a checklist, but as a outpouring of, I need to practice this stuff. Well, I could do better. But the one I wanted to focus on is orthopathy. Forget these words. They're just words. It's like describing the beauty of a sunset. You can't do it. You just need to see the sunset or the sunrise. Orthopathy, though, is basically right spirit. And that's where the West neglects so badly. That is basically saying, when Jesus says, go into the closet, shut the door, pray to your Father in heaven. That's what I think we're missing. That's the right side of the brain, for lack of a better word. That is sitting out here meditating. That is sitting out here with friends, being in communion with God. Enjoy nature. Take time to look at this. And I think that's what is so important on leaving the matrix. People might say that just means your corporate job. No. It means so much more than that. It means leaving the clouded brain, the bandwagon effect, and get out here in nature and be still. Well, I don't like being out here alone. You need to do that then. Well, I only want to be alone. Well, then you need to go get with some people. So I think it's that challenging of a self. But that's where my foundation's coming from when they're like, hey, is there a spiritual element? And again, great book. It's funny, it came out right after the movie. I just recently found it and was reading through it. But it's pretty good on what I'm summarizing here. Taking the Red Pill, Science, Philosophy, and Religion in the Matrix. And it has a bunch of different essays on kind of what I'm talking about from different perspectives. A lot of them I don't agree with. But I'm over my 12 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Hopefully this will be completed next time I turn this screen on, at least here. But no, that is why I really think the spiritual side is a a foundation point, a very important must from leaving the matrix. So just wanted to share that. That's all.